Hi, I'm Boss, and this is the movie Fringe. A father sends his unruly son to a special boarding school, the AK Torture Center, where they teach him to control his aggression. I'm silent. I don't speak. I obey orders. I'm silent. I don't speak. I obey orders. The film, based on real events, begins with the protagonist, teenager Fran, video chatting with his best friend and girlfriend. He's drinking beer and smoking in front of his computer. Suddenly, his father, Louis, walks into the room. He has to get up early, and the loud noise is keeping him awake. The teenager rudely snaps at the old man to leave, but his father doesn't leave. He tries to talk to his son while his friends wait patiently. In the morning, sleep-deprived and irritated, Louis goes to work to manage the store. Meanwhile, his lazy son is having fun. Forgetting school, he smokes with friends, listens to music, drinks, and makes out with a girl. Later, the father is informed that Fran dropped out long ago, and then the hospital calls and asks him to pick up their son who got into a fight. The man is forced to go to the emergency room, where the parents of Migu, Fran's friend, are already waiting. They comment on how Fran is a bad influence on their child. After waiting for the examination, Louis picks up his son. He tries to talk to him on the way home, but in the underground garage, his son breaks down and wants to leave. The man catches up with his son, but the teenager yells at him, slaps him, and then runs away. When Luis returns home that evening, his son is gone. He's gone to a disco to party with friends, dancing, drinking, and snorting drugs. The father lights the candles on his birthday cake alone. His son has turned 17. Worried that he can't find common ground with his child, Luis searches online for ways to communicate with teenagers. He stumbles upon an ad for the Simca program, a specialized psychological intervention for aggressive behavior. Parents of troubled teenagers share their experiences of how difficult it was for them to communicate with their children before and how much easier it became after. Watching videos, Luis doesn't notice how time flies, and then, at night, a stoned Fran staggers down the hallway. He pauses by the slightly open door to his father's room, but his father turns off the light to avoid another unpleasant conversation. The next day, Luis attends a Simca presentation. An imposing coach gives an inspiring speech about how discipline can help instill in spoiled children real values and the determination to run a successful business. While he listens to the speech, his son is on the phone, drinking alcohol. Migu, at his mother's prodding, disowns his friend, and his girlfriend hints that they never had anything serious, so it's not a good idea to make long-term plans. A frustrated Fran continues to drown his sorrows. That's exactly how his father finds him that evening. That night, 2 trained security personnel drag the half-naked teenager out of his bedroom. He fights back, kicks, screams, and calls for his father. But Luis has already prepared a suitcase with his things and escorts his son to the boarding school. They throw the boy into a minivan and drive him along a picturesque serpentine road away from the city. There he is met by Father Oscar, the head of the guards. The man is displeased that the new boy is barefoot and half-naked. The children are expected to maintain discipline and be clothed. He also dislikes the handcuffs the teenager is wearing. Oscar orders them removed. Fran interprets this gesture as friendly and insults the guard. But the guard immediately re-establishes the social hierarchy. He twists the insolent child's arm, shoves his face into the wall, and recites the ground rules, including respectful silence in the presence of elders. The right to speak is a privilege. Fran gets a haircut, is given a uniform, and is led to the rest of the group. Children with bloody marks on their chins watch the daily video. They greet the newcomer with a rehearsed chant. When Fran tries to talk to a neighbor, Father Oscar pauses the video, and the kids jump up, reciting the rules of silence. Disconcerted by such coordination, Fran looks around dejectedly, realizing he won't be coddled here. The rest of the routine includes strictly regulated community service, collecting wood chips, and group lunches in the cafeteria.
Fran watches her new friends, trying to memorize the obligatory chants. They watch television commercials in which psychologists hammer home ideas about acceptable behavior. Among the teachers, Nando's father also stands out. Oscar reprimands him for his appearance and chewing gum, which he uses to set a bad example for the other students. The teenagers also speak with a psychologist who asks them not only about their deepest fears, but also about their relationships with their parents. Fran admits to missing his father, but is saddened by the fact that Louis never really showed paternal love, including toward his mother, who left the family when he was little. The boarding school's teaching staff, led by Oscar, are discussing the upcoming Freedom Day, a celebration for the students designed to show them what life outside the institution could be like. Nando, the new kid, doesn't know what it's like, and his colleagues tease him slightly, to which he responds with a pompous speech. Later, during lunch, Nanda takes out her anger on one of the students, slamming him face first into the table, while the other children eat hastily, pretending nothing is happening. During the course of the lesson, Nanda gets carried away and sprays the child's eyes with pepper spray.
The director of the boarding school doesn't like this. Wealthy parents don't pay money to have their children maimed. Oscar manages to hush up the matter with a light reprimand and a firm slap on the table. Soon, Fran successfully memorizes the rules. However, he's not yet familiar with the punishments, so one day after lights out, he sneaks out of his room. Unnoticed by the guards, he goes down to the floor below where he finds a sensory deprivation unit, complete or partial isolation from the outside world. Here, even simple conversations are forbidden. In one of the rooms, the protagonist sees a teenager strapped to a gurney, his eyes and ears covered, left alone with his thoughts. Fran removes his mask and headphones, and the poor guy screams for mercy killing. Horrified by this reaction, Fran runs back, but the guards spot him escaping from the bedroom. The alarm is raised. A hunt begins. The hero hides in a corner, and when a guard enters, he pounces on him and beats him to a bloody pulp until backup subdues him. For this act, Father Oscar sentences the entire group to punishment. The children are placed face down on the floor, their chins pressed to the floor. While they lie motionless, the guards periodically turn on the lights and loud music. The situation resembles a Pokemon episode that triggers epileptic seizures. After serving her sentence, Fran receives her bloody mark on her chin. Meanwhile, the children's parents gather for their own rehabilitation program led by psychologist Helena. Louis explains that he can't find common ground with his son, to which the doctor replies that dialogue is a two-way street. Therefore, not only should children learn obedience, but parents must also be involved in their lives. Helena cites Sandra and her parents as a successful example. The girl completed the program. The adults talk about how their lives have changed since their daughter's return, but the story ends with the girl wetting herself and her mother takes her away. It's nighttime. Returning home, Luis, as the psychologist advised, goes into his son's room. On his computer, he watches a music video of his son fooling around with his friends. Among the footage is a glimpse of Luis himself, secretly filmed by his son at work. The video makes his father smile, and the next morning he goes to the boarding school to pick up his son. However, Oscar shows him a video of the guard beating Fran and convinces him that Fran isn't yet ready to adapt to society. While watching another video, a young man cracks a joke that the teachers overhear. The group is led away for yet another punishment. For failing to heed the repeated messages, they will have to stand on their feet, hands bound and blindfolded for over a day. Only those who survive the longest will pass the test. The rest will be sent to the sensory isolation ward. Those who squat are escorted out by the guards. Meanwhile, the parents undergo another training session on mutual understanding. Luis gets to know Sandra's parents better. They are concerned about their daughter's mental health, but hope the training will help. The next day, the remaining teenagers are fed, but only one portion less than the captives. Unable to reach an agreement, the children quarrel, and the guards take all their food. As night approaches, as the second day begins, Helena arrives at the cage. She's filming the children to gather evidence of the cruelty and methods used at the boarding school. Nanda catches her and takes her to Oscar, but the director sees nothing wrong with leaking data. All these methods are legal.
On the third day, Fran is the last one standing and returns to his regular life on schedule.
Meanwhile, Louis develops a warm relationship with Sandra's mother. They have lunch together, and their acquaintance develops into romantic interest. But while she is kissing Louis in the parking lot, her daughter watches Helena's torture videos. Unable to bear the overwhelming memories of her ordeal, the girl throws herself off the roof right before her father's eyes, immersed in work. The director reprimands Oscar for leaking the information. This leads to a tightening of the rules and regulations at the boarding school. The students are literally driven to physical exercise. Some vomit right in the gym. He also continues the beatings with the tacit consent of the rest.